Good morning, everybody. Well, what a week. The withdrawal agreement, uproar, resignations, and, of course, Theresa May in this very studio here in LBC giving her first reaction to it and taking your calls. So what have we learnt this week? Well, we've learnt that there's a draft text that's been agreed between the PM and the European Union. We've learnt that despite the resignations, Theresa May has vowed to fight on. We've learnt that Jeremy Corbyn believes he could get a better Brexit deal. We still have to find out whether 48 letters are in or not, and overnight we've heard that Zach Goldsmith and Bill Cash have added their names to the list, and Graham Brady, perhaps conveniently, wasn't in London on Friday, so we'll find out perhaps tomorrow on that. And over in Europe, quite big development as Angela Merkel for the first time stands up and says she wants a real, true European army. So a hell of a lot going on, and I'm joined this morning by prominent Remainer Alistair Campbell. We're going to try and make sense of it all. We're going to try and understand what actually happened this week. We're then going to attempt to predict what will happen over the next few weeks. We'll take your calls all the way through the hour, and you can ring up and, within reason, ask Alistair anything you want. Now, you can call us on 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course Facebookers and Periscopers, you can watch us live and you can comment and ask questions on Facebook too. Alistair, good morning.
Hello. Quite
a week. Now, we've obviously, after all the drama, we've had both Jeremy Corbyn and Mrs May appearing with Sophie Ridge on Sky this morning. And let's just have a little listen to what both of the leaders have said this morning and see what our reaction to that is. Let's listen to Mrs May on Sky News saying what would happen if this deal gets voted down in Parliament.
There's a process that Parliament will go through. If were it the case that the deal was lost, then the government would come back with their proposals for what the next step was. But we're not at that point. We're at the point of a week's further to go in the negotiation, when we have that agreement with the European Union at the EU Council and bring it back to the House of Commons. What I'm saying is I think every member of Parliament will want to look at the deal, but they'll want to ask themselves, how can I make sure that we deliver Brexit? And how can I do it in a way that's good for my constituents? And remember, there are those in the House of Commons who just want to stop Brexit. I believe it is essential for people's trust in politics and trust in Parliament that we deliver on Brexit for people.
Now, I know you're a Labour man, but she didn't exactly sound to be fully in control there, did she, of it all?
No, what was interesting was that she seems to be saying, having said in Parliament the other day, this is basically it. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, this is it as far as the Europeans are concerned.
Oh, they're not going to renegotiate this,
no,
are they?
And you know, they've had 2.5 years messing around with this and being played around by Johnson and Davis and the rest of it. So, and yet, because she's obviously still worried about some of her ministers walking, she's sort of pretending that she can. And she's talking about these negotiations in the coming week. But I think what's extraordinary about what's going on at the moment is that she's actually being pretty dishonest about the nature of this deal, because she wants people like you, who are passionate for Brexit, to pretend that this is Brexit because we are going to be leaving the European Union, when actually it doesn't deliver on the sort of things that you've been wanting. And she wants people like me to think, well, actually, she's doing her best to stay as close as possible to the European Union and to minimise the economic damage that I think is going to be done by leaving. And she's ended up with the worst of all worlds. And what I find dishonest about it is that, so for example, the one bit where she was really vulnerable, I thought, in the interview, I didn't think it was a very good interview, to be honest, either side, but I thought the one bit where she was vulnerable was talking about this thing about the Northern Irish backstop, where she can't bring herself to say what is true, which is that the UK has surrendered the right to decide when, if it happens, that ends.
I think you and I will agree on that.
I'm afraid there's quite a lot we agree on, and in relation to the nature of the deal, because it shouldn't satisfy anybody who's a kind of hardcore Brexiteer, and it shouldn't satisfy a Remainer. And what she's trying to do is basically say, well, you've got people like you over there sort of extreme on one side. She would say people like
hang
me...
on, I'm not going to... Hang on. When 17.4 million people vote for it, it's not extreme, is it?
No, I think that you are extreme.
No. I just want to be independent.
And the 17.4 million didn't all vote for your vision of Brexit. So, but you've got you over there, and then she would say, this is her speaking now, you've got people like, me and the kind of, she said there are people there just who want to kind of thwart Brexit.
Which you're one of.
I am somebody who thinks this is a catastrophe for the country, and I believe that the Brexit now being offered is so far removed from what was promised in June 2016 that it should go back to the people. And I actually think, Nigel,
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, on that point...
Yeah.
And actually, do you know what? As far as Mrs May's interview this morning is concerned, there isn't much more to say, really, is there? Because it wasn't very exciting. What about Jeremy Corbyn? Because he was on Sky News this morning, and he was asked this point about the second referendum, which I know you're incredibly passionate on having a second referendum, or as you call it, a people's vote. Let's just hear what Jeremy Corbyn had to say on that this morning.
It's an option for the future, but it's not an option for today, because if we put a referendum tomorrow, what's it going to be on? The government must go back and renegotiate and see what it comes back with, and Parliament must look at that time. To do anything else now would be to ignore the reality of the situation, is that this government has had all this time to negotiate and hasn't really achieved anything.
So it's an option for the future, is what the Labour leader's saying.
Which is warmer than he's normally been. But I think what's interesting about that is he's basically saying the government screwed it up and we could do a better job. Mm-hmm. Now, that may or may not be true, but we are... The problem I think Labour has is that there are Theresa May has tried to square some circles, okay? And she can't square them. And nor would Labour be able to square them. We can't be in and out.
No, that's right.
And I think that's...
Of course.
So
either we're leaving or we're not, and that's absolutely right.
That's why I think... I mean, you presumably... I've heard you say, you presumably think that this deal that she's brought forward, I think you said, is worse than what we have.
In many ways it is, which is why it's going to fail in the Commons, in my view.
Okay, but if it's worse than what we have, and if... What she seems to be saying that... We're having to do this because the country voted for Brexit. But if even the most ardent Brexiteers, such as yourself, say this is worse than what we have, it begs the question, what is the point of leaving on this basis?
Well, we're not going to leave on this basis.
Right,
I think what's become clear to me, Alistair, is I don't know what you think, but I don't think there's a cat's chance in hell of this deal getting through Parliament.
I think it's unlikely, but I think we're in such mad times that I wouldn't take anything for granted. And I think the reason why I was disappointed in the interview, given that she's putting herself out there in this way, and we had all this stuff about her faith and the process and Graham Brady and letters and blah, blah, blah. The country has to be confronted with the reality of what this deal... It's not even a deal, by the way. This is the divorce agreement.
Yeah. When she says we're delivering on open borders, etc. It's not even in the document.
It's nonsense.
No, I know that. And again, I think on this document we agree. But when Corbyn says that a referendum's not for now, in a sense he's right, isn't he? Because we're 131 days away from leaving the treaty. All right? There isn't time to organise a referendum, is there?
There'd have to be an extension.
Ah.
And I believe there should be, because look, the other thing.
So you're saying that Article 50, the date we leave the European Union, should be suspended?
I think this process, if the country, look, what's absolutely clear about this is the country's not uniting, the cabinet's not uniting, Parliament's not uniting.
So we should suspend Article 50.
I believe that at some stage we will have to extend the process, because and you've got the Labour Party sort of sitting there saying, well, we want a general election. They're not going to get a general election. I think it's virtually impossible that this Parliament, particularly with the Fixed Term Parliament Act, is going to vote to have a general election. So there's a danger that in Labour pushing for that the whole time, we're going to run out of time. And this cliff edge, I know you think that's over-dramatising, but the no-deal Brexit, and let's be honest, no deal is a deal of sorts. It's just a very, very bad and dangerous deal. So I think
It's just a different deal, isn't it?
The reason why I believe that this should go back to the people is because her deal, this agreement, she said, let's just wind back a little bit, and this is what just didn't get even covered in the interview. Theresa May has made a succession of dreadful strategic errors. I think she triggered Article 50 too soon. She had that ludicrous election where she lost the majority that David Cameron had won and therefore weakened her mandate. She triggered Article 50 without a plan. She went to the Salzburg summit without understanding where the other European leaders are going to be.
And was treated appallingly
She
by
may
them.
have been. She was.
I mean, they're not very nice people, are they?
Well, some are and some aren't. It's like Britain. Some of them are and some of them aren't. But,
Do you know,
but
I mean,
most
would you
of
not
them,
concede that when you've got unelected people like Barnier and Tusk,
But they're negotiators.
they've behaved pretty unpleasantly towards
I don't believe that. I think Tusk made a silly mistake with his stupid cake photo.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think I said this the last time I was debating this with you. When we voted to leave, whether we like it or not, the European Union, minus the UK, becomes their own negotiating vested interest. They're negotiating for the best possible outcome for
From
them,
their perspective.
which includes getting a good agreement. But it can't be an agreement that, as it were, disadvantages them and benefits us disproportionately. And this whole have your cake and eat it. I mean, let's be honest, Nigel, the campaign was fought badly on both sides, but it was won a lot of it by lies.
No.
Yes, it was. The
Well,
negotiations.
I tell you what, Alistair.
Wait a minute. No, there were lies. The £350 million a week was a lie.
We will come to lies. We will come to lies in the hour, particularly about a European army and many other things.
The negotiations have been conducted on the have cake and eat it fantasy, and now the reality is hitting home. The reality is there's no way of doing this. You cannot stay with the benefits of the European Union whilst pulling yourself out. That's a fact.
If you think we have to suspend Article 50, which you clearly now do,
I think we have to find more time for the process because to get even an election, I think you have to do that.
Do you not understand how, in terms of democracy, not only in the referendum did people vote to leave, but 85% of electors voted for parties saying we're leaving the European Union.
Yeah, and I was one of them. I wasn't voting for that. I was voting to stop her getting a mandate.
Wouldn't that be a bit of a betrayal of democracy?
Well, I understand that argument, but I think I'll give you another definition, I think, of a betrayal of democracy, is where a majority of MPs elected by the people are going to vote for something that they actually deep down know to be wrong. So, for example, Nigel, if you were an MP now, could you vote for this deal?
God, no.
Exactly.
Wouldn't even dream of it.
Right, exactly.
No, absolutely
so
not.
You are urging...
I would veto it. Alistair, how long should Article 50 be suspended for?
I believe that...
Come on, a year?
I don't
2
know.
years?
I don't know. And by the way, I hope you've seen the story today, because we're paying in $40 billion for nothing.
I know that.
We've now got to do an extra $10 billion a year for every delay.
And it could go on and be who knows what.
Exactly. So I think to get to a referendum, you have to have... I hope the deal is voted down. I make no bones about that, and I think you do as well. Right, but if it's voted down, Nigel, where does it go?
We leave.
No, you can't just leave.
No, I think,
you
folks,
can't just leave without... you have to lead the process.
I think we leave on March 29th.
What does that mean, though?
Well, we leave and we go to WTO rules, but there's a lot to do in a short space of time
Absolutely.
either way. Alistair Campbell thinks Article 50...
By the way, we definitely have an Irish border. You know that. We have an Irish hard border.
Alistair Campbell believes needs to be suspended. If you want to ask Alistair about Article 50 and its suspension, 0345 6060 973. In a moment, we'll try and understand this deal a little bit more. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 16 minutes past 10.
This is LBC.
Nothing to see here. Just a regular retriever eating his food, doing his thing while you're out doing yours, not raiding the bin, and no little surprises left on the floor. What a good boy. Nothing to see here means nothing to worry about. With the Hive View Smart Indoor Camera, check on your home from your phone, wherever you are, and join over 1 million people using Hive products. Search Hive to discover more. Hive. Let's get living. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Get your share of Dubai right here in London. Dubai Land Apartments Dubai Property Show brings you the best of Dubai's real estate projects. From budget homes to luxury apartments, villas and beach properties all under one roof.
Get exclusive deals, attend free seminars and learn about investing in Dubai.
Visit the Dubai Property Show from 16th to 18th November at Olympia, London. Entry is free.
For timings and pre-registration, visit DubaiPropertyShow.com.
Platinum sponsors: Falcon City of Wonders, Nakhil Properties and Shoba Realty.
With our smallest fare of £1.50, you can buzz around zones 2 to 6 by tube during off-peak times. See more of London for less expense. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. £1.50 is an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go fare for a journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services.
You can play People's Postcode Lottery for just £10 a month, and winning postcodes are announced every single day. This December, there's even more prizes. Over £14 million is guaranteed to be won. Enter your postcode before midnight on the 22nd of November to play in the December draws at postcodelottery.co.uk. PPL manages lotteries on behalf of good causes. Players must be over 16. Terms and conditions apply. Please play responsibly.
Someone's knocking at the door.
Want to make Christmas extra special this year? Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday. Jamie Oliver's Christmas Recipe Magazine. 24 pages of scrumptious festive dishes, all your traditional Christmas favourites with a delicious Italian twist. Jamie Oliver's mouth-watering Christmas recipes. Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday. Plus, get £10 off at Lidl when you spend £40. Voucher inside the Mail on Sunday. Terms apply. See newspaper for details.
Finance for Business is the specialist finance broker that offers variety, working with hundreds of lenders to complete your project. Experience with a team that knows finance inside and out. And dependability. They are with you, even beyond a deal. Bridging finance, development finance, commercial mortgages, whatever you need. Choose Finance for Business, because broking is the new banking. Visit award-winningfinance.com.
So today our most popular dishes are avocado on toast, or you can have avocado with chili on toast, or there's the avocado with chorizo on toast, or you might like the avocado on toast with peppers, or there's avocado on toast with salmon, or you could try out avocado on toast with lemon.
And for those that don't follow the herd, the new Jaguar I-Pace, our award-winning all-electric vehicle. Jaguar, a breed apart.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
I'm joined by Alistair Campbell, and thus far in this hour we've had a remarkable amount of agreement between us, because we both think that this deal, the withdrawal deal, is a pretty rotten deal and doesn't deliver on Brexit for anybody. Let's take a call. Let's go to David in Paddington. David, good morning.
Morning. Alistair, what you just said, that there would be a hard border in the Irish Sea, a border in the Irish Sea and obviously the World Trade Agreement. How do you think that anyone in this country considers your opinion to have any weight whatsoever when you're considered by millions to be a war criminal?
Sunday morning.
That's nice.
Well, there we are.
I imagine that the reason why I constantly could spend my life in a studio is because the whole world agrees that my opinion is of no worth. You can either have a serious debate about the issues, or you can come on and just spray your abuse around. But I'm sure there are lots of people with more intelligent points to make.
David, I tell you what, we're going to move on. I got a question for you. It's come through by text. To Alistair, to what extent are we in this chaos because the electorate got it wrong? Asks Michael.
Well, look, I've said to you before, I do understand why people felt that they wanted to reject the status quo. As you know, I was against having the referendum in the first place, because I think referendums are very, very dangerous things to have. I do think that Project Lies beat Project Fear.
Oh, we're coming to that, don't worry.
Okay, Project Lies beat Project Fear.
We're coming to that. 50 years of it.
I think that the populist agenda, which you were such a big part of, prevailed, and now what's happened is it's not that the government is trying to make sense of the decision. And I think the reason I was so disappointed with the Prime Minister this morning, I think this is one of those moments where our political leaders have to tell the truth to the country, and the truth is she cannot deliver all. She was talking about the national interest, she was talking about this great economy we're going to have. She knows that this deal agreement is going to damage the economy. She promised that the future arrangements were going to be worked out by the time this agreement came up. They're not there.
Why would this deal damage the economy when it changes nothing?
No, I think it does change things, because I think
not in economic terms it doesn't. Does it?
It does, because I think what we're doing, we're withdrawing ourselves, and we're doing it in a way that I think is already signalling our decline. I was in Dublin yesterday, right, and I was at a rugby testimonial on the night before the game where Ireland had that amazing win.
Yeah.
But I was on the way to the airport, and the taxi driver He says, you know that place over there? And he points out the window, and there's this massive sort of new buildings going up. He says, we're calling this the Brexit building site. And these are companies that are already leaving the UK, relocating. I think, and that's happening.
I would remind you, Alistair, that in the early 1990s, scores of British companies relocated to Dublin. Friends of mine went to Dublin.
And they got burnt.
Because corporation tax rates of 12.5% were rather attractive.
No, but listen.
So there are lots of reasons for companies moving around the place.
Let's be honest, Nigel. People are leaving the UK economy not just because of the uncertainty, which is real, but because they realise this signals our own choice of our own decline. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think that when you and I were talking a minute ago, and you agree with me that this is not Brexit.
Absolutely.
You agree with me that it's a terrible agreement.
This is basically vassal state stuff. Right. And that is the problem with it.
In which case, you surely... Why wouldn't you actually say maybe the way to resolve this now is for your choice to go up against my choice? If you're like, no Brexit, my side, no deal, your side, and let's see where the public come out on that.
We will in this hour get to predicting what happens if that vote
No, but what's your view on that?
I'm going to tell you in a minute. Jamie from Nottingham is my next caller. Jamie, good morning.
Good morning. Question to Alistair. Would Alistair agree that the deal that Theresa May's putting on the table is worse than a WTO deal?
Okay.
No, probably not. But I do think that, you see, there are two massive problems with her agreement. And let's be honest, this is not the deal, by the way. This is the divorce bill. This is what we're going to pay in, and it's some of the arrangements will then be made. And we leave... By the time we're out on this agreement to negotiate the future, we've lost all the levers. I mean, it's been a pretty weak, badly handled negotiation anyway, but we lose all the levers. So, no, I think it may be marginally better, but it's not that much better, to be honest. And the point is, she keeps saying that this is the national interest. How can it be in the national interest for her to do something which, by her own admission, to be fair to her, I think she has tried her best, but she will not answer the direct question whether this is going to make the country richer or poorer. Because she knows it's going to make us poorer.
We've actually lost more sovereignty with this deal than we currently have. Because at least under Lisbon, which I hated and we should have had a referendum on, but at least under Lisbon, we're able, under Article 50, to announce we're going to leave. What she signed us up to is a form of customs union that without their permission we can never leave. So I think we agree on that. Jamie, thank you for your call.
So we've lost control.
Even more.
Yeah,
even more.
Exactly. So how can anybody support
this? And that's why I'm against the deal. Jamie's point was interesting, though, because no deal is better than a bad deal was a phrase that I came up with a couple of weeks before the referendum itself. And Mrs May then started to parrot that, but without ever meaning it. What she's now saying is a bad deal is better than no deal.
And Liam Fox is staying the same.
I know he is.
So listen, what was Boris saying when you met him?
Oh, well, I didn't really meet him. We were in the same restaurant, but...
I see. It wasn't a secret dinner.
No. And Stanley Johnson, his dad, was sitting in that chair where you are 3 weeks ago. So I was in a restaurant on Thursday night. Boris was in the next room.
Oh, I see. So
it wasn't the great conspiracy that it's been painted out to be.
Sorry, my phone's going. What did you talk about? Are you on the same page with him?
It's very interesting because I just said how fascinating it was to see a father and son at dinner who've got such diametrically opposed views because Stanley... You're not
answering my question. What did you talk about with Boris?
Oh, I was with him 30 seconds, 60 seconds, something like that.
But is he going to vote against the deal, for sure?
Oh, do you know what? I didn't ask him that, but I think if Boris was not to vote against the deal, I think his credibility would be shredded. So I'm pretty certain that he will.
Well, it's not very shredded now.
That's a matter of... Now, I tell you what is interesting, Alistair, is that, and you mentioned this a few minutes ago, you talked about the status quo. That, we on the Brexit side wanted to bust the status quo, absolutely, and you on the Remain side wanted to defend the status quo, and yet...
No, but I'm not defending the status quo. I want to remain
But
and
I'll tell you what's really interesting. Let's just have a look at the kind of things that have been said in Brussels this week. This week's been a big week in Europe, and no one's noticed here because, obviously, of our own problems. You've had France's finance minister calling for the EU to become a powerful new empire to rival the US and China. His comments, he basically saying that Europe has to be strong enough to defend itself in every single way. Emmanuel Macron used the centenary of the armistice, I thought quite disgracefully, to make an overtly political speech about forming a new European army. And yet, when I look at the debates I've had with your side on this for a quarter of a century, I mean, take Nick Clegg in 2014 debating with me.
This is a dangerous fantasy. The idea that there's going to be a European Air Force, a European army, it is simply not true. The problem with people like Nigel Farage is they swing at windmills. They see conspiracies everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Nigel Farage soon tells us that the moon landing was a fake, that Barack Obama isn't American, that Elvis isn't dead. You know, it is not going to happen.
So there we are. That was Nick Clegg on saying, no. There's no European army. The European Union is going to stay as it is. I mean, take Antonio Tajani, the President of the European Parliament. This was him this week in Strasbourg.
European Parliament want more power.
More power.
On the budget, we want to increase the budget from 1.1 to 1.3. We want own resources. We need also a European foreign policy with an European defence. This is very important for us. This is very important for the future of the European Union.
So it's more money, it's more power, it's becoming a big global player in military terms. And just to sort of cap it all off, and I wasn't sure I'd ever hear this from a German chancellor, but Angela Merkel was in Strasbourg in the European Parliament on Tuesday. This is what she said.
What we should do, and this is really important if we look at the developments of the past years, we have to work on a vision of one day creating a real, true European army.
You see, Alistair, right from the moment of the 1975 referendum, when my parents' generation were told, don't worry, little heads, this is just about trade, it won't impact on sovereignty at all, this is an economic club, it's not ever going to be a political union, all the way through to the day the European Constitution was launched. I was there, Giscard d'Estaing, saying with this document we become a global superpower. On the same day, the Europe Minister for Labour, Peter Hain, described it as a little tidying up exercise. And then we go on to one of the big debates in the referendum about what kind of European Union is this and where's it going. And your side gave us the impression nothing much is going to change. I was called a dangerous fantasist. And now we hear they want to expand. They want to get rid of veto on foreign policy.
Well, some do and some don't.
Hang on. You've got the President of France, the Chancellor of Germany, the President of the European Commission. Every one of the 5 presidents is now saying there'll be no veto in future on foreign policy, and we're going to have a European army. Do you accept that actually what would have been more honest for 50 years is if your side of the debate told us it's going to be a United States of Europe?
Look, there's 2 things here. The first to say is I do believe that you could argue about the way that Macron phrased it and with Trump arriving and all that, but the point he was making is that the way the world is developing with these, China's going to be the dominant power of certainly the next few decades, India rising, Russia reasserting itself. America, frankly, with Trump, let's be frank about this, I know you might disagree, but a lot of people feeling that America will be less reliable in relation to European security, that there is an argument about the extent to which European foreign and defence policy continues to develop in the way that it is. And by the way, I know a lot of people in the military, as I'm sure you do, and I think that our defence chiefs are actually really, really worried about the damage that Brexit is going to do to our security because we pull ourselves out of European defence structures. I think they're more worried about NATO
and what may happen to that.
No, but NATO, but nobody's saying we're undermining NATO in this.
No man can have 2 masters.
No, Nigel, this is where you're wrong. You can be part of different international organisations.
When Macron says that we have to have a European army to defend against our enemies, and he
didn't say that. He didn't say that.
Well, I can assure you, Mr. Verhofstadt did this week.
Mr. Verhofstadt is a total federalist. I'll give you that. Macron is not.
Do you think the USA could pose a threat to us?
No, I don't think he's saying they pose a threat in the same way as China. He was saying they're not as reliable. Angela Merkel, listen, Angela Merkel, her whole life, her whole politics, she has said that there are 2 fundamental tenets. She will never criticise. She's very, very pro-Israel for pretty obvious reasons, the history, and she's very, very pro-American. But even she has said, and listen, there's evidence for it, that America at the moment is not our most reliable ally.
I tell you what, Trump will continue to pay for the lion's share of NATO, provided we pay our 2%.
Yes, but you can't have it both ways, Nigel.
You're right. You can't.
No, wait a minute.
You can't have American support and not pay 2%.
No, exactly. So
why don't they all pay 2%?
And they will continue. I agree with that. Listen,
they're not doing it.
They're not doing it. But as they understand that there is a greater responsibility on them to provide for their own defence, and they're doing that within the context of European politics, why should you criticise that if it means spending more on defence?
I was told no European army. Now they're telling us that there's going to be one.
No, some are.
You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. It's now 10:33. We're late. Time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Jeremy Corbyn is calling on Theresa May to renegotiate her draft Brexit deal with the European Union, adding another referendum is not an option for today. It's as the Prime Minister insists she can't sign up to a legal text until the UK has left in March. Prominent Remainer Alistair Campbell has told Nigel neither Mrs May or Mr Corbyn are making sense.
Theresa May has tried to square some circles, and she can't square them, and nor would Labour be able to square them. We can't be in and out. She seems to be saying we're having to do this because the country voted for Brexit. But if even the most ardent Brexiteers, such as yourself, say this is worse than what we have, it begs the question, what is the point of leaving on this basis?
One other headline this half hour, 5 more bodies have been found among the rubble of the Northern California wildfires, bringing the total number of people dead to 76. Officials say 1,300 others are missing. LBC weather, dry and sunny, breezy across the south, a high of 11 degrees.
This is LBC.
Want to make Christmas extra special this year? Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday. Jamie Oliver's Christmas Recipe Magazine. 24 pages of scrumptious festive dishes, all your traditional Christmas favourites, with a delicious Italian twist. Jamie Oliver's mouth-watering Christmas recipes. Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday. Plus, get £10 off at Lidl when you spend £40. Voucher inside the Mail on Sunday. Terms apply. See newspaper for details.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
You're on the touchline, freezing. And as your little girl glides across the pitch and scores in the top corner, you think, I can't feel my toes. You take out your phone, tap the Hive app and adjust the smart thermostat to make sure it's nice and cosy when you get home.
Join over 1 million people using Hive products and you could save up to £130 per year on your heating bill. Search Hive to discover more. Hive. Let's get living. Hive services require broadband. Terms apply.
Did you know you can get real-time updates to find out when your bus is due? There are loads of mobile apps available, powered by TfL data, or you can visit our website, all of which make it easier than ever to plan your journey. Running for the bus may soon be a thing of the past. Search TfL improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hello, Jan here. Bonjour everyone.
Hi, it's Claire.
Hey, Monica.
Stephen has joined the call.
Morning all, just wanted to say how much I'm looking forward to working with you. Bye.
Stephen has now left the call.
Don't cut your business calls short again. O2 lets you call and text from the UK to the EU at no extra cost. Search O2 Business or visit an O2 shop.
New and upgrading customers only. Standard landlines and mobiles to selected destinations. Caps and terms apply.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Where's my debit card? Is it in my right pocket? In my left pocket? Did I leave it in the bedroom? Maybe it's under the bed. Maybe the kids took it. And if they took it, then it's probably going to be flushed down the toilet by now.
Wouldn't it be great if you could press pause on the card panic? Well, now you can. With the Lloyds Bank mobile banking app, you can freeze certain transactions on your Visa debit card until you find it.
Oh, there it is.
Lloyds Bank, by your side. Mobile banking app available to UK personal internet banking customers with an iPhone or Android device. T's and C's apply.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
A Comrades opinion poll published this morning in the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday Express shows a little bit of a change in the last few days. Conservatives down 3, Labour unchanged, UKIP up 2. Interestingly, Labour now a 4-point lead. And actually, if you think about it, that field work was done just 24 hours after the announcement of this deal. I have a feeling amongst Conservative Leave voters, she is in a lot of trouble. Now, I've got Mark on Twitter, I've got Nick on text asking me about the 350 million a week. Mrs May responded to this with Nick Ferrari on Friday morning. Let's just have a listen.
We've set out that we'll be putting more money into the NHS over the next 5 years, and it will mean £394 million more a week going into our National Health Service. We believe that's important. And that's, the NHS is going to produce a 10-year plan so that we can really look to ensure that we're securing the future of the NHS, which is, an institution that is not only loved by everybody up and down the country, but really does fantastic work day in and day out.
Was Boris Johnson right to have stood by that bus 2 and a bit years ago?
Well, this is a commitment that the government is making now. Yes, we can get some money back from the European Union, but actually it's 394.
So he was right to stand by the bus.
It's 394 million that we will be putting into the NHS
per week.
Well, there you are, Boris. Boris was right then.
No,
I wish I'd supported him now because I wasn't part of that. I've missed out in every way on this. I really did miss the bus on this one.
You did. I mean, I'll tell you what. The idea that this is to do with Brexit, they've decided to put more money into the health service because the health service needs more money. The idea this is some kind of Brexit dividend.
390, marvellous, isn't it?
It's just another lie. The bus you should be watching, Nigel, and that Tory MPs should be watching, and Labour MPs, is the one from OFOC, Our Future, Our Choice, that is touring the country, going to see MPs and young people. One of the best things about this campaign has actually been that young people, I think, are getting more engaged in this, and they're out there saying to these MPs, if you really in your heart don't believe that this agreement is good for the country, you have to vote it down.
No,
so we're agreed again.
We're going to come to that.
You're still going to tell me what you get.
Don't worry about that.
Good.
Don't worry about that. Not one little bit. We're going to Romford to speak to Catherine. Catherine, good morning to you.
Good morning to both of you.
Hi, Catherine.
Right, fire your question into Alistair, please.
Okay, I would like to ask a question about the nature of the EU. So the French government said the other week that the EU is an empire. So I'd like to ask both of you, actually, is the EU a supranational entity or a kind of empire, or is it a friendly club?
Well, I don't. When you say the French government, I mean a minister or a politician may have said something, but I think the European Union is a collection of sovereign nation states and working in a common interest according to certain common values. And the thing is that we can always take the worst that people say and think the worst of people, but I think the European Union has been a force for good in the world. I think it's been a force for good for us. And what's really interesting about about people like Nigel and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson and their opposition to this agreement, as Nigel said earlier, they're saying it's giving us less sovereignty. Their argument up to the referendum...
Even less.
Exactly. You were saying we've surrendered all this sovereignty, but actually you're saying we're in danger of losing the sovereignty that we have. And so I think that one of the real tragedies of this whole debate is that we've had decades of sort of anti-European propaganda and the lies that are told in the newspapers that have sort of poisoned the well of debate. The European Union is not a perfect institution. It needs to reform itself, and I believe one of the tragedies is that we could be leading in that reform instead of which we're pulling ourselves out.
Catherine, what do you make of that?
Well, my understanding is that in the European Parliament, the UK only has a 12% share of the vote. So that means that 88% of the votes could be taken against the UK. So I don't really understand how that makes the UK a fully sovereign
But so if that's the case, why are we? It's the European Parliament. I mean, every seat. You might as well say if you're English, well, why should Scotland have seats? So it's the European Parliament, and the point is, I mean, I don't know if you saw yesterday Nadine Dorries. I mean, honestly, one of her complaints about this deal was just we're not going to have any MEPs after this agreement. Well, that was partly the point, wasn't it?
Well, it was. But Catherine, let me tell you, I've been there 20 years nearly. It's a deeply unfriendly, centrist, authoritarian club. It's just vetoed a very reasonable budget from the Italians. It's removed voting rights from Hungary and Poland. It's run by a bunch of unelected old men.
No, it's not. It's run by
It's run
by
the European Commission are unelected.
They may be.
And
they're appointed by the elected governments. They're not vile, Nigel. Some of them are bad, some of them are good.
Power without accountability. We're going to Northern Ireland, to Newry, to speak to Damien.
Good morning, Nigel. Good morning, Alistair.
Good morning.
Hiya.
I just want to put a dose of realism into the conversation this morning. Regardless whether it's Theresa May, Rees-Mogg, the Pizza Club from the Cabinet, or Jeremy Corbyn goes back to Brussels, there will be no renegotiation on the permanent backstop for Northern Ireland. And that's a reality that people need to get into their head.
I totally agree. Yes,
I do too.
And I think this is what...
Once you've agreed something with them, Damien, they bank it.
No, it's not a question of them banking it.
They do.
They've been clear. They've been clear from the word go. You people can criticise them. Michel Barnier, day one, he said that the thing we're going to sort out first of all are the reciprocal rights of British people living in the European Union and Europeans living here, the divorce bill, and ensuring there's no hard border on the island of Ireland. He stuck to that. Well, we, the British government, have changed plans. They had this red line, then it wasn't a red line. They had this Brexit Secretary, then it was another one. I mean, we have been utterly shambolic when they have actually been pretty clear. And I think that... And they're still misleading people about the Irish thing. She wouldn't answer it this morning, would she? She would not answer this point about, is it true that the Europeans effectively now have a veto on this? And the answer to that is yes. And she should be honest about that.
Yeah. Damien, whether it's right or wrong, your point is absolutely valid. It really, really is.
But just to, my final issue is the DUP and others are trying to make a whole issue about this backstop. Every sector in Northern Ireland, from agriculture, manufacturing, business, is backing the backstop. It's our insurance policy, and that's going to be in place regardless of who's in government.
Well, the issue, Damien, is that of whether we need a hard border. And I think, when I listen to David Trimble and people who were very much involved with you guys with the agreement back in 1998, there are all sorts of ways. There is not going to be a hard border coming back, whatever happens.
But there
with
has
Brexit.
to be if we're on WTO. There has to be.
No, there does not. Because
it does, Nigel.
Do you know, I tell you something, all those containers coming into Southampton and Felixstowe right now, there isn't some little fella checking every one of those containers.
That may be the case.
We will come back to this.
Ireland is not
we will come back
Southampton.
to this. You're listening to the Sunday edition of Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:45.
As Britain faces up to its future, LBC puts your questions to the Prime Minister.
Leader of the DUP says they're ready to withdraw support unless there's a change of Prime Minister. Are you aware of this?
They've raised some concerns with us, and yes, we're looking at those.
I'm a local councillor. Please, Prime Minister, tell me, why do you think you should stay on as PM? I respectfully ask you to stand down to allow someone from the Brexit camp to take the lead.
We're leaving the European Union on the 29th of March. I'm doing my job. I'm bringing back what I believe to be the best deal for Britain, and MPs will then do their job.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC.
Join Clive Bull every Sunday evening from 6 for the Consumer Hour on LBC.
Is this a common problem, the disputes over whether something arrived and the couriers and who's responsible?
When you order anything online, the delivery company is contracted by the retailer, and the retailer is responsible for that order all the way up to the point where it's delivered to you. So if it goes missing in delivery, the retailer is responsible.
The Consumer Hour on LBC with Which. Impartial advice, investigations and reviews. Keep questioning.
With hands-free keycard and 16-inch alloy wheels as standard, the Renault Clio is guaranteed to turn more than a few heads this season. Get the autumn look from as little as £179 deposit and £179 a month with 0% APR finance. Get your quote today. Search Clio offer. Renault Finance, 48 months, optional final payment £4,221, subject to status, over 18s, ordered by 7th of January, registered by 31st of March 2019. Retail customers, participating dealers, T's and C's apply.
At Boots, we want to help you be protected against flu. If you're over 65, pregnant, have certain medical conditions or are a carer, you can get a free NHS flu jab. Book your free NHS flu vaccination in-store, on our app, or at boots.com/flu. Boots, let's feel good. England and Wales only, funded by the NHS, subject to eligibility criteria, all bookings subject to stock and pharmacist availability. Ask your pharmacy team for details.
When you build your own website with GoDaddy Website Builder, you've got all the tools you need to make your idea real and get yourself noticed. Improve your rank on search engines, reach out to your customers with email marketing, take online appointments, boost your social media presence. And best of all, you can build and edit your site from any device, which means wherever you are right now, you could also be building your website and making your own way. Unless you're driving, in which case you should pull over first. Try Website Builder for free at godaddy.co.uk.
Get a smart meter, and if you're on prepay, conveniently see how much credit you have left, and top up online or on your phone. So instead of running to the shop, you could play the banjo, fry up a fry-up, ride a horse, or a centaur. Tap dance like nobody's watching. Teach your old dog new tricks. Or quite simply, make crumpets great again. Save your energy for literally anything else. Contact your energy supplier about getting your smart meter at no extra cost. From the campaign for a smarter Britain.
Available in England, Scotland and Wales by 2020. Features and smart meters available with selected energy suppliers. Savings require customer action and eligibility may vary.
Expecting guests? Tatty toilet? Flush it with B&Q. Our palmy toilet seats are just £15, and with 7 colours to choose from, they're perfect for showing your loo some festive love. So to get Christmas ready with everyday low prices, you can do it when you B&Q it.
If you started your own furniture store today, I doubt you'd call it Fishpools. But if the year was 1899 and your name was Ernest Fishpool, well, it was, and he did. Today, Fishpools in Waltham Cross is one of the largest furniture stores in the southeast with a huge range of modern and classic styles. There's up to 25% off across the store, but hurry, offers end soon. See it all at fishpools.co.uk. That's a website, Ernest.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Early snapshots on the public opinion in terms of this withdrawal agreement show 49% totally opposed, that's according to Survation, and 27% totally support, with a lot of people not yet quite made their minds up on this, unsurprisingly. Let's go to Milan, who's calling from Chiswick. Good morning to you.
Morning both. So outside of the lies and nonsense from the Leave campaign, Alice said, do you agree that the reason we're in this mess now is because Brexiteers cannot decide whether they want complete independence to make your own rules and import whatever goods, or frictionless trade with the EU? You cannot have both. That's pure fantasy.
Well, that's the square that can't be circled, and that's the one that she is still pretending that you can have, and you can't. And so I completely agree with you. And it's not just the Brexiteers who I think are being dishonest about this, but I think the government are as well. So all that stuff she came up with this morning about the national interest and, great schools, and we're going to have more money for this and more money for that, it's a total nonsense. So I completely agree with you, yeah.
Well, Milan, there we are. You've got total agreement on that. You might not get it from me, but you've got total agreement with Alistair. We're going to crack on. Could Jeremy Corbyn have made a better job of this?
Of the negotiations?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, in the end, I mean, it's, I guess Keir Starmer would have led a Labour negotiating team. But I do feel, and I've felt right from the word go, that the Labour Party has been too much sort of, kind of in the tide of this, rather than Sophie Ridge put the point to Jeremy Corbyn this morning. He's a leader. He's the leader of the opposition, and leadership means, I think, just the same as the government have not confronted the public with the truth about what needs to be done, nor has the Labour Party, because I understand why they're sitting there hoping there might be a general election, because it's hard to see this lot being re-elected. But ultimately, this is the biggest issue of our lives. It's the biggest issue of our lifetime, and I think all leaders have to stand up and what they say what they really think. Now, Jeremy's, you've known him for a long time. I've known him for a long time. He's not in the same place as I am on Europe. But ultimately, when I hear them talk about a jobs-first Brexit, or, I don't think there is one. When I hear them say we'll renegotiate something better, in the 3 months that we've got left? I mean, how? So that's why I do think this at some stage has to go back to the people. Is this what you meant by Brexit? Is this what you meant by Brexit? In which case, both you and I would vote against it.
Let's just have a think about this, and let's try and make some predictions. Not easy, I know, but let's have a go. So we've got the big European summit next week in Brussels. Nothing's going to change. There is no way they're going to change their...
There'll be no basic renegotiation, for sure.
There could be a slight change in the wording of the political declaration.
And they'll try and help her. They'll try and help her.
But that's not legally binding anyway.
No.
All right? So I think we'll agree on that. No substantial changes. And Michael Gove and the other 4 cabinet ministers just whistling in the wind if they think between now and next Sunday was going to be a big change.
And both Merkel has been very clear on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when she's clear, that usually is...
But let's say we come to a vote in the House of Commons and it's going to be, I don't know, first week December, second week December. I I just can't see, looking at the arithmetic, any means by which she doesn't lose by between 40 and 60 votes. So let's assume right now it's put to the Commons, it's voted down. What then, Alistair Campbell?
Well, as she said this morning, the government then has to come forward with a plan. I hope that what happens is at that point that the Labour Party, when it's clear that they're not going to grant them a general election, that Tory MPs are not going to vote for their own self-destruction, that the Labour Party comes behind the position that we've been pushing for some time now for a people's vote, that this goes back to the people. And then the question has to be Parliament and the Electoral Commission between them deciding what the question should be. If her deal is defeated, then if her agreement is defeated, then why would you put that on the ballot paper? Therefore, she maybe has to come forward with something else. I think Remain has to be on the ballot paper.
What about Leave?
Well, Leave, she would say what she's got is Leave. I agree.
No.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So let me say this.
But Alistair, if we had a referendum, a wholly dishonest referendum that said you accept Mrs May's form of servitude or you Remain.
Yeah, but we're having a dishonest choice now. She's saying you either have her deal. Wait a minute.
You cannot have a referendum on that. I couldn't vote.
I couldn't vote. Wait a minute, no, Nigel. In which case, why aren't you arguing for a people's vote where the choice is no Brexit, no deal? What's wrong with that?
Well, I'm not arguing for a second referendum because we've had one.
No, I know, but why?
But let's keep the speculation going.
Yeah.
Let's go to James in Islington. James, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I would like to ask Alistair, if there was a second referendum, what would the precise wording of his question be?
Well, and at this stage, I can't give you an answer to that. I can tell you what I would like it to be. I would like it to be Remain against some form of Leave that had been agreed by Parliament. But that looks to me like it's not going to happen. So it may be, I know that Vernon Bognador, a constitutional expert, and Dominic Grieve, they've both set out a sort of different two-stage processes that you could do. And I agree with Nigel. I've got to just hear myself saying that again, but I agree with Nigel. I think
Get the smelling salts out,
I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult if the substantial body of opinion that does want to leave whatever the cost, whatever the consequence, but that could be taken off the table in Parliament. I don't know, but I think at some stage this is going to have to go back to the people, because let's be honest, Nigel, the country is not uniting around this at all.
No.
And that normally happens after a referendum.
No.
Normally the country will unite after a referendum.
Ever since Chequers, we've seen of the options available for our future, Chequers, stroke this deal, commanding between 10 and 15%.
Listen, her agreement, the last polls I saw, it was polling below Donald Trump and Saudi Arabia. So, it's not very, very popular.
No.
And what's more, I think I do believe that the public, if they felt this was a real choice, and she let the cat out of the bag the other day, she did say, I don't think she meant to say it, she did say there were three possible outcomes. There's no deal, there's her deal, or there's no Brexit.
Yeah, which was disgraceful. To try and say, really, unless you have my deal, there's no Brexit. We've never heard that as well.
That is utterly disgraceful.
James, if we had a second referendum, I hope we won't. I would like the question to be, do you wish to be an independent country? Yes or no?
But that, Nigel, that is not a question. That is not a question.
No, it is because...
I can say yes to that. I can say yes to that because we are an independent country.
Well, no, not if we're governed by the European Court. Not if our laws are made somewhere else. Not if we can't control our borders. Not if we can't catch our own fish. Come on.
But if it was Remain, if it was... You've said that this deal is worse than staying in.
Yep.
So if that is the choice, would you stay in?
No, I want to get rid of this deal. But I will tell you in a minute what I really want to see.
Okay.
What I really want to see.
Right.
Ian in Holborn.
You sounded like Spice Girl.
Good morning. Morning, Ian.
Good morning, everybody. Look, it's clear to me, and I think many people, this deal's dead, and the government is dead in the sense that they're just a sort of zombie walking. The Tory party are in such disarray. They're never going to be able to pull it together in the next few months. So for me, general election or another vote is obviously the way forward. But what I'm curious about, want to know, is what people think, what Alistair thinks, whether if Labour were to win a general election, whether they could get it together to deliver something that's sensible, like the Norway deal.
Look, I'd like to think anybody could do better than these negotiations have gone, but I've said several times on this in the last hour that I think there are circles that can't be squared, and so you have to make that fundamental choice. The trade-off has always been sovereignty But now we know that the Brexiteers admit that we actually have always had sovereignty. It's just that they would like more of it, or damage to trade and your economy. And so I would like the Labour Party to be much more full-throated in actually confronting the public with the truth about what this represents. And the thing is, here's the thing about a general election is about everything. It's about every single issue. I do think now, even though I'm not really in favour of referendums, I think the referendum having delivered the vote that it did in June 2016, I don't believe that can just be undone by an election. I think it has to be another referendum.
Well, Alistair, I'll tell you what I want. I want May gone. I want her gone.
Yeah, but then what is it?
What happens? No, it's very easy. I want a Brexiteer
It's not
in charge.
easy, Nigel. This is the problem. You've told the country for years it's easy. It's not easy.
I want a Brexiteer in charge. I want that Brexiteer to say, look, we're clearly wasting our time with these people. We're going to leave next March on a WTO deal. And we're going to get...
Right, so you want no deal?
We want no deal.
You want no deal?
I believe in those circumstances...
You want chaos, you want catastrophe.
I believe it... No.
Yeah,
As I say,
you want chaos.
Look at
you
China,
you want
look at
Kent to be a lorry park.
And
you want the planes not to fly.
Oh, we've had plenty of lorry parks in Kent. As members of the EU, I can promise you. I want that. I believe the country would rally behind a leader that gave a clear vision of what they wanted.
They won't, though. It's fantasy, Nigel.
And it's
fantasy.
If the risk was of that...
So who is it? Is it Boris Johnson?
If the risk of that was Parliament
who is it?
Overturning the EU Withdrawal Act...
Who's your Prime Minister?
And forcing a second referendum...
Who's your Prime Minister?
That risk...
Who's your Prime Minister?
I'd rather take that risk than accept this deal.
Who's your Prime Minister?
I could get someone off the street to do a better job.
Well,
job.
You've got to come from Parliament, Nigel.
Alistair, we're out of time.
OK.
We are out of time. Right, well, you've been listening to the Nigel Farage show. We've really had a good debate, I think, here. And we're going to debate in the next hour. Would Jeremy Corbyn be able to negotiate a better deal? I mean, he's up in the polls, he's at 40%, he's 4 points
clear. Labour should be 20 ahead.
Well, I agree with that too. Do we have faith in him? We're also going to have David Wooding in, the political editor from The Sun on Sunday, who of course have been supporting Brexit and supporting Theresa May, to see how long that can continue and how long that can last. So please, could Corbyn do a better job? 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, Theresa May says she hasn't thought about resigning despite resignations and pressure from her own MPs after revealing her draft Brexit plan.
No, I haven't. And of course it's been a tough week. Actually, these negotiations have been tough right from the start, but they were always going to get even more difficult right towards the end.
In a poll out today, almost half of voters surveyed want the Prime Minister to stay in her role until after Brexit. But it's understood around 23 Conservative MPs have written a letter of no confidence to the party's 1922 committee, expressing concerns about Mrs May's leadership. They need 48 to trigger a vote. The Prime Minister has also addressed the issue of the Irish backstop, describing it as an insurance policy, adding it can only ever be temporary. But prominent Remainer Alistair Campbell has told Nigel that is not correct.
She can't bring herself to say what is true, which is that the UK has surrendered the right to decide when, if it happens, that ends.
I think you and I will agree on that.
It shouldn't satisfy anybody who's a kind of hardcore Brexiteer, and it shouldn't satisfy a Remainer.
It's as Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn says his party, in government, would tell the European Union what has been negotiated so far on Brexit is not acceptable. Mr Corbyn adds another referendum is an option for the future, but not for today.
There are many reasons why people voted. I don't think you call a referendum and then say you don't like the result, you go away from it. You've got to understand why people voted and try and negotiate the best deal you can. I do not believe this government has negotiated the best deal it can. All options are on the table in the future.
And Nigel will continue leading Britain's conversation on that story next. Donald Trump has visited areas destroyed by wildfires in California as the number of dead has risen to 78. Around 1,300 people are missing. A man has been charged with murder after an elderly woman was stabbed to death in southeast London. The victim, who's been identified locally as 75-year-old Maureen Watkins, was found at a home in Peckham last Friday. 55-year-old Edward Watkins will go to court tomorrow. Creditors have moved in to secure jobs and newspaper titles at Johnson Press, the owner of The Scotsman, The Yorkshire Post and The Eye newspaper. A newly formed company, JPI Media, is buying the publisher after it put itself into administration. £35 million will be invested into the business, which also includes 200 local newspaper titles, with debt levels reduced by 60%. The Vicar of Dibley actor John Bluthal has died at the age of 89. Dawn French is leading tribute to her co-star who played Frank Pickle in the TV comedy. She says cheeky, naughty, hilarious by Darling Bluey. LBC weather, dry and sunny, breezy in the south, a high of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
I put her tea out while she rabbits on about Hannah's birthday party. I make sure the chips aren't touching the fish fingers, and she gets something from the jar for eating all her peas. She needn't know what a struggle it was getting up at 2 p.m, how hard it is to avoid the ulcers when I brush my teeth, or how it feels taking 13 tablets a day. Because I might have cancer, but the most important thing is that I'm Sophie's mum.
A mum with cancer is still a mum. Our support line is here to help you get through the hard days. Because life with cancer is still life, and we're here to help you live it. We are Macmillan Cancer Support.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
So Jeremy Corbyn up in the polls, out on the television being interviewed, and he's basically saying that he thinks he could negotiate a better deal in the next 3 months than the Conservatives have been able to do in the last 2.5 years. Here was Jeremy Corbyn being interviewed by Sophie Ridge on Sky News this morning.
It's an option for the future, but it's not an option for today, because if we've got a referendum tomorrow, what's it going to be on? The government must go back and renegotiate and see what it comes back with, and Parliament must look at that time. To do anything else now would be to ignore the reality of the situation, is that this government has had all this time to negotiate and hasn't really achieved anything.
So it's not a second referendum for now, it is a renegotiation. He could do a better job. Mind you, I remember Tony Blair in 2005 when he held the rotating presidency of the EU, attempting a renegotiation on the common agricultural policy and failing dismally. In fact, he finished up giving away £7 billion of the British rebate in return for a promise from the French that they might look at reform of the CAP, which never ever happened. But do we actually think that Labour and Corbyn could do a better job? Or is the truth of it that actually they're pretty split too? Because Corbyn, again, quite clearly saying no second referendum for now, and in fact saying in an interview with Der Spiegel, making it absolutely clear that we can't stop Brexit. We're leaving on March the 29th, only to be completely contradicted by Keir Starmer and many other senior Labour figures. I wonder what Craig, a new caller from Oxford, makes of this. Good morning, Craig.
Morning, Nigel. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you for coming on. I mean, do you think Corbyn would do a better job than Mrs May?
I think the problem that we have is in the skill set and the mindset of the politicians in general. I'm an engineer, and much like a doctor, I spend my life going places, identifying a problem, implementing a solution and making things work. And that's how my mind works. It seems to me that the only way politicians' minds work is to adequately perform their weekly Wednesday pantomime. And they don't necessarily have the skill set or the mindset to resolve the Brexit issue. And this is further compounded by the fact that Jeremy Corbyn seems to still think a deal could be negotiated in the implementation period, or this 2-year Article 50 process. That's not the way it can happen. The only way we can get our golden deal, our perfect situation, was for someone to have come to the forefront and said that the EU cannot afford to lose face. There's no way they'll agree a deal in 2 years. So we have to go through the motions. We'll ask for the golden deal. We'll negotiate what we can. We'll come to terms with the fact that we can't get it in 2 years. Leave under WTO rules.
Yep.
And then form our trade deals with Japan, China, India, Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, all around, which further strengthens our situation and further compounds the EU situation, where the countries start pressuring the bureaucrats that are unelected.
Craig,
them.
If we left on WTO terms, Craig, they'd come running down the road after us, wouldn't they?
They would. And as I said, with every deal we negotiated, our position gets stronger. theirs gets weaker, and then we get closer towards that golden deal. And for Alistair Campbell to turn around and say that you can't get a deal that pleases both sides, actually you can. If you get the perfect Brexit deal or close to it, where you get all of the benefits with none of the drawbacks, does that not please both sides?
And that is through a free trade deal, Craig, ultimately.
Ultimately, yeah.
Ultimately, yeah.
Unfortunately, politicians don't have the skill set, the mindset, or the capability to do that, because that's not how their mind works.
And the other problem, Craig, is that our politicians, 70% probably of our parliament, maybe a tad more, just don't believe in Brexit. So they're being asked to carry something out that they simply don't believe in. And that, to me, is a big part of the problem. Plus, I think, Craig, a massive failure of leadership from the Prime Minister. What do you think?
Well, I think politicians have lost the scope or the reason why they're there. They're elected to represent the people, not themselves. And it's not about what they think. It's about influencing what the people think.
No.
So whether or not they want to vote for something is irrelevant. They need to do what the people have put them there to do.
And they promised they'd do it, didn't they? They promised they'd do it. We will implement Brexit. Craig, thank you for your points and your thoughts. And Craig there, an engineer, a practical person that looks to solve problems. He doesn't seem to think our politicians have really got what it takes these days. Congratulations, Nigel and Alistair. A great discussion, with you both being respectful and polite. Will you be exchanging Christmas cards now, says Simon in Leicestershire? Well, actually, I think there were one or two heated moments. We have strong disagreement, but I think we actually agree quite a lot on that this deal is just an absolutely awful deal. Definitely yes, Nigel. Mr. Corbyn should be given the chance, and a general election should now be called. Well, if and when this vote is lost in Parliament, which I believe it will be within the next 2 to 3 weeks, there will be calls for a general election. But looking at those opinion polls that I read out this morning, I can't see Mrs. May, or if she's gone an interim leader or whatever it may be, I can't see them being very keen on calling a general election. And Mary says Corbyn would be just as bad as Mrs. May. Maybe, folks, the truth is that with Barnier and Juncker and Tusk, actually, we're wasting our time trying to get a sensible deal out of people who want to punish us because they're really scared that the Italians and others might do the same thing. Valerie is calling from Islington. Good morning, Valerie.
Good morning, Nigel. This is the first time I'm to your show.
Well, welcome.
I've often listened to you, and you're very passionate about what you want to do and what all of us should do. But my question is, the question on the table is, would Jeremy do a better deal?
Yeah.
I believe that Jeremy would do a better deal. I know Jeremy personally, and I know with his humility, I believe that he will do a better deal. Obviously, Theresa May is, she's tried, and that failed. And I think that given the chance, Jeremy would definitely do a better deal.
Valerie, is he your MP?
He is my MP.
Yep.
Yes. And does that mean I'm biased?
No,
Yes,
listen, I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested. So, how well do you know Mr. Corbyn?
I know Mr. Corbyn for years because I've often gone out and helped to canvass and get votes and so on. So I know. I'm studying politics at the moment at uni. Mm-hmm. And from what I'm seeing, and I love that quote by Rousseau, man is born free, but everywhere in chains.
Yeah.
We're in chains because we buy into some of these things that sometimes we're not able to get out of, or in order to be part of society, we have to tie up ourselves. Now, right now, ideally, I think Britain and the UK should not leave Europe, because now that it's all unraveled, we can see what will happen. And Britain will not any longer be the UK will not any longer be the UK that people have known it to be. Free, and we can go anywhere in the world and do things.
Valerie, isn't the problem less with Brexit and more to do with the Prime Minister, who's made a complete hash of it?
Well, what is happening is, when you have a team of people you're supposed to be able to trust, the electorate put on the table, we ask that the party in power represent us. What is happening is everyone that seems to be in the Conservative right now, bar from a few, seem to be just representing themselves.
Well, there's a lot of factionism, Valerie, I get that. But Valerie, here's a point for you.
Yeah.
You're saying we should stay in. And yet Jeremy Corbyn, ever since he first became an MP back in 1983, has voted against every single European treaty that has ever come before the House of Commons.
Yeah.
He has always been absolutely opposed to our membership of the European Club on the grounds that he believes in national democracy. So, I mean, so you disagree with him on that point, do you?
It's not that I disagree with him. Everybody has their own personal, because remember, he was not acting on behalf of the party then. He was acting on his own principle, from what I may understand. This is just me saying that. But what I'm saying here is, sometimes when you're on the other side, sometimes you may be the person to get a better deal. You know, I know that Theresa May has tried that, but we also live in a society right now where it shouldn't be happening. But I'm wondering if it was that she was a man, she would have got a better deal. But she doesn't have a good team around her, because everyone's looking out for her themselves.
And Valerie, she's got a split party. And I just think Jeremy Corbyn, his instincts and Keir Starmer's instincts are clearly completely different on this issue. And I just wonder whether if Labour were in charge of this, it would be them now going through this massive internal row and not the Conservatives. And that's just...
I think we diplomatically, we would be doing this better, because when you deal with peace and conflict, you can't go into a negotiation with, war. You have to go in wanting peace. You want to go in and deal with it diplomatically, and I think that's not done properly.
Okay.
And get some really great negotiators in.
All right,
Valerie
thinks Corbyn would do a good job with the right team around him, and I thank you, Valerie, for your call and insight into Jeremy Corbyn. Anyway, there's a bit of really good news, folks, this morning. I'm sure you're all very cheered to know who the new Brexit Secretary is. Yep, it's Stephen Barclay. Ever heard of him? Have you ever heard of him? I asked a room full of 240 people on Friday night this question, and admittedly, it was in the West Country, it wasn't in his own North East Cambridgeshire constituency, and only one person out of 240 had ever heard of him, or thought that they might have heard of him. I did want to say to Herman Van Rompuy, who are you? And I could do much the same, couldn't I, with this new Brexit Secretary? But it doesn't matter who the Brexit Secretary is. Doesn't matter whether it's David Davis or Dominic Raab or Stephen Barclay, because they're not running this. The Civil Service are running this. Ollie Robbins and the others are completely in charge of this process, and that is why the withdrawal agreement keeps us so closely trapped, designed to be in perpetuity within the European Union. The Civil Service are running this process. I have called them the enemy within and been abused for doing so. I repeat that phrase this morning. You're listening to a Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 11:15.
LBC.
In business, size doesn't matter. Ambition does. Black Friday has come early. Exclusive pre-Black Friday offers available now. Huge savings across Dell laptops and desktops powered by Intel Core processors, and up to 50% off monitors and accessories. So when it comes to price tags, maybe size does matter. Visit dell.co.uk/Black Friday work or call 0800 633 5577.
And finally, an epidemic continues to sweep the nation. Thousands of people have been struck by FOMOB, the fear of missing out on business. We go live now to a badly affected area.
It started with a feeling of butterflies every time I thought about missing a client's call. Now I've got 4 phones taped to my face.
If you're afraid of missing an important call from a client, you could be at risk of FOMOB. But never fear, eReceptionist answers and diverts your calls, so you never miss an important opportunity. Go to eReceptionist.co.uk and fight the FOMOB with eReceptionist.
Sorry, Mrs. Mills, your boiler needs replacing.
Oh no, what would you recommend?
Well, I see you've got a Bosch washing machine.
Yes, it's never let me down.
Exactly. I'd recommend a Worcester Bosch Green Star 29 CDI. It's really reliable and it's been awarded a Best Buy from Which. And with the Bosch Easy Control, you can even adjust the heating from your phone. So simple, your cat could do it. To find your new boiler, a local installer, and receive up to a 10-year guarantee, search Warm as Worcester.
Alicia, give me some ideas for men's gifts.
The most popular men's gifts are beard trimmers, beard oil, beard mist, beard wax, beard rollers, beard balm, an e-beard, beard spray, beard dye.
For those that don't do the expected, the Jaguar F-Pace, a performance SUV with the DNA of a sports car. Jaguar, a breed apart.
Get your share of Dubai right here in London. Dubai Land Apartments Dubai Property Show brings you the best of Dubai's real estate projects. From budget homes to luxury apartments, villas and beach properties all under one roof.
Get exclusive deals, attend free seminars and learn about investing in Dubai.
Visit the Dubai Property Show from 16th to 18th November at Olympia, London. Entry is free.
For timings and pre-registration, visit DubaiPropertyShow.com.
Platinum sponsors: Falcon City of Wonders, Nakhil Properties and Shoba Realty.
Is Donald Trump a dangerous provocateur or a great entrepreneur? Does the Me Too movement empower women or undermine them? Does the country need a people's vote, or have we already had one? With independent opinions from the best British journalists, read a magazine that makes you think. The Spectator. Open for debate. Try a month free at spectator.co.uk. Credit card required. Future subscription costs apply unless cancelled 7 days before end of trial.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Could Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party do a better job of this negotiation? I don't think so. They're pretty split as well. And, of course, there's a lot of pressure within the Conservative Party for a second referendum. Quite a lot of people in Momentum, I've got the impression, that they just don't want to leave at all. Nigel, if Corbyn got in, Brexit would be off the table because of Momentum, suggests Chris in Darlington. Nigel, all Corbyn has to do is play the waiting game. The Labour Party will win the next general election with a landslide. He's played a blinder, says Laura from Shenfield. But I tell you what, Laura, I believe. I believe that if this deal gets voted through in the House of Commons in 2 to 3 weeks' time, I think there's no chance of the Conservatives winning the next election, because millions of them will simply sit at home and say, I don't want Corbyn, but actually this is an act of betrayal. And I think this poses a cataclysmic electoral problem for the Tories. Brett is a new caller from Frogmore in South Devon. Good morning, Brett.
Hello, good morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you.
This all reminds me of an old adage about politics, which is that it doesn't really matter who you vote for because the government always gets back in. And I think this reinforces what you were saying a few minutes ago about the fact that these negotiations have not been conducted at all, as far as I can see, by the people who were supposedly appointed to carry them out, be it David Davis or Dominic Raab. As the facts have slowly emerged, coming up to Chequers and immediately after Chequers, David Davis was seemingly deliberately kept out of the loop. And all the time, there was a parallel set of negotiations being carried on with the EU by a team led by Ollie Robbins. Now, I don't think enough has been made of this by the Leavers or the Brexiteers. And this is why it doesn't really matter whether Jeremy Corbyn gets elected or put into power. It won't matter if the same team are conducting the negotiations. If you have a Remainer establishment and a Remainer Prime Minister and a Remainer majority cabinet in charge of these negotiations, what chance was there ever that we would get the Brexit that we voted for?
And look at it now, Brett. Amber Rudd's back in the cabinet.
God forbid.
Stephen Hammond, who is, one of the biggest Europhiles in the world. It's a more Europhile cabinet now than it ever was, Brett, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I am absolutely disgusted with the Tory MPs. I was a lifelong Tory voter. I'm 66 now, until about 20 years ago when I stopped and I joined UKIP. Now, that's by the by. I stood for Parliament as well in 2010.
Okay.
And I've had these arguments with people for many, many years. When I see people who are supposedly Brexiteers continually accept what is a non-Brexiteer argument or position.
It's a charade, Brett, isn't it?
It is a charade. It's a game to them. It isn't a game to me. I want to say something. I run my own small manufacturing business, a one-man manufacturing business. Within 2 or 3 days of the result of the 2016 referendum, my phone didn't stop ringing for 12 months. With orders, business inquiries, there was a tremendous sense of euphoria amongst the people I was speaking to who shared my opinion that finally we were going to be free of the EU and could decide our own destiny. Gradually, over the last 12 months, the people's thoughts and attitudes seem to have changed as they've realised that we are being sold down the river and virtually nobody would be trying to stop it. That level of business has diminished and diminished and diminished.
Yeah, there's a bit of gloom out there, isn't there? There's a bit of gloom around. Yeah, there is.
That hope of the future has gone.
Brett, what do you... I mean, I get your passion. I understand what you do. What do you hope happens from here?
There can only be one solution, which I hope will be put in place. Theresa May has to go. Yep. That's number one.
I agree with that.
There cannot be any future with her in charge because she's going to back up Ollie Robbins and his team who are working basically against what we voted for.
Yes.
The Brexiteers have got to get their act together and depose Theresa May. I don't care whether it's a caretaker Prime Minister in the shape of David Davis or Dominic Raab or a combination of them or Boris Johnson.
Just someone that believes in it would help, wouldn't it?
We have to have somebody heading the whole thing up who passionately believes that Brexit is our future and that the future of this country... I've got 4 children and now a grandchild as well. I don't want them growing up in this so-called vassal state whereby, we cannot make our own decisions, our laws, etc., etc. WTO is an option. It's not a no deal. It's an option. It's the way we deal with the whole of the rest of the world. It doesn't frighten me in the slightest.
Okay.
The only thing that frightens me is if our future is decided by other people. I don't care, or people we can't elect or get rid of. I don't care what the world throws at us as long as we can control our own destiny and make the best of whatever hand we're given.
Brett, you've made the point very passionately. Thank you. And just backing up Brett's point, very interesting piece by Quentin Letts in today's Sunday Telegraph. The Prime Minister threatens to neutralise Brexit, disable our sovereignty and obliterate the Conservative Party. Wow, that's pretty strong stuff. And I will be asking the political editor of The Sun on Sunday in a minute just what The Sun are really thinking about Theresa May. But Luke is a new caller from Ipswich. Luke, tell me that the Labour Party could do a fantastic job of this, please.
Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
I'm going to keep it simple.
Yep.
The way I see it, I think we've got 2 options at the moment on the table, and it's who are we going to let drive the bus, Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles? Honestly, nobody seems to know. Like, if Labour get in, because of everything that's going on with the Conservatives, if Labour do get in, then you've not only got to look at what will happen with Brexit, but you've also got to look at the way Corbyn is generally. He will go after big business, he'll push them out, and this is what we've got to realise as well. Even if he did get us a Brexit, what's he going to do?
Well, actually, Luke, if he got us a Brexit, a proper Brexit, where we became an independent, self-governing nation, it wouldn't matter that much what he did, because he could only do it for a short period of time. We could then vote for somebody else to reverse all of it, couldn't we? I mean, that is the essence of what parliamentary democracy is. And my problem with Theresa May's proposal is all the rules and regulations that affect the whole of British business, we won't be able to change any of, stuck in that customs union.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't understand how she's even... how she can stand there with a straight face and say that she's got us the best deal that was possible, because it's worse than anything.
Yes.
We're completely locked in. There's no way out of it. And that's what a lot of people won't admit, apart from the people that see it for what it is.
But it sounds to me, Luke, with what you said about Jeremy Corbyn, that whatever you think of this deal and whatever you think of Theresa May, you're still going to vote for her.
I'm UKIP myself.
Oh, are you? Right, okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I was quite disappointed that you did leave.
Well, I haven't left. I'm just not leader of it anymore. And I'm still, leading a group in the European Parliament. But I'm not running the thing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Thank goodness.
I think you would have been a lot better to stay on, and the party would be a lot higher up in the rankings.
Yeah, and I realised that if I'd done that, and it would have been another 10 years, and I thought, no, I don't fancy that. Luke, thank you. I'm off to Eastbourne to speak to Lynn, a new caller. Good morning, Lynn.
Hello, Nigel.
So, could Corbyn do a better job?
No, he couldn't at all, because the job can't be done. But what I want to say is that what has happened here, you British are not believing in yourselves through all of this, and I have to say that you're the sharpest, you're known to be, the sharpest business people in the world, that this is facing a cliff. It's absolutely ridiculous. We were working with British business intelligence in the British Embassy back in the 1970s. You all were owning some of the most major companies in America, and typically you didn't want everybody in America to know that, but that's the way that you work. This is absolutely ridiculous. You're facing a wide-open future. It's been long in coming. You should definitely go for it and believe in yourselves. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Lynn, our complete loss of self-confidence, at least that loss amongst our leaders, is absolutely right. And one of the arguments I made all through the referendum is that our political class arguing for us to stay part of this club, they just don't believe we're good enough to run our own country. And Lynn, that to me is at the root of much of this.
That is at the root of it. It has to be self-belief. Morale is everything. Morale and integrity. You don't have the integrity with the EU. You certainly don't have that. The mindset that could pass a law, for instance, that people in jail for pedophilia had to have access to child porn. You have incredible. I don't think they know who's making these decisions. You have to be out, and you have to be out for the sake of America as well. And as a matter of fact, I think for Western civilization, you have to be.
Len, do you know something? Not only are we the laughing stock of Brussels, and how happy they were in the members' bar in Strasbourg last week when I was there, but I think increasingly my American friends say, so are you telling me then that there's no prospect of us doing a trade deal for at least another 3 years, or is it 5 years? Why would anyone, Lynn, actually take us seriously? And that's the problem. How long have you lived here, Lynn?
40 years. 40
years, right. And do you think we're approaching the worst crisis you've seen in that period?
I think that you're approaching the biggest opportunity that you've had in all that.
Yeah, well, no, listen, I don't disagree with a word of that. Lynn, thank you for the call. I've always believed that. Massive opportunity, but you have to believe in it. And above all, the leader has to believe in it. And Theresa May doesn't believe in it. And here's the irony. Jeremy Corbyn does believe in it. So on the face of it, I should say he'd make a better job of doing the negotiation. But, once again, he's never worked in the real world of business. None of these people have ever been involved in negotiations that matter. I also think he'd be completely hamstrung by his own party, who are pretty Remain. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Theresa May says as far as she knows, 48 letters needed to trigger a vote of no confidence in her leadership have not been sent. The Prime Minister also says it's been a tough week, adding she's never thought about stepping down. But Mrs May's former Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab says she's failed to stand up to a bullying European Union over her draft Brexit agreement. More bodies have been found in the California wildfires, with at least 78 people now dead. More than 1,300 are still missing. 3 men have been taken to hospital following a shooting in North London. It happened in Enfield. 2 had gunshot wounds. LBC weather, dry and sunny, breezy in the south, a high of 11 degrees.
This is LBC.
You and me are going to have such great adventures. Climb mountains, travel to the great beyond. Or we could drive around aimlessly for a bit to see if that works. With 7-inch touchscreen and navigation, Renault Kadjar is ready for life's adventures. Now with £2,500 deposit contribution, it's even easier to get one. Search Kadjar offers. 4.9% APR representative, Renault Finance, subject to status, over 18s, ordered by January 7th, registered by March 31st, 2019. Retail customers at participating dealers, T's and C's apply.
Are you about to put your audit out to tender? How will you decide which accountants to select? Whether you decide to spend more or less, go bigger or perhaps smaller, what you really need to do is choose the one best suited to your company. In which case, you should arrange a free meeting with Barnes Rofe. We know that every client has different needs because we spend the time to get to know them personally. Contact us at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
This is the sound of the Walker's wedding in Oxford. Only a bouquet's throw away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
This is the sound of waiting in for your British Gas engineer from the corner shop. Introducing our new Engineer Tracker. Because it's nice to know if you can pop out for milk, we're with you. All part of British Gas Home Care boiler cover from £12 a month. That's just 40p a day. And now, enjoy 1 month free this winter when you buy selected home care products online by the 19th of November. Search British Gas Home Care. Conditions apply.
Research a holiday.
Do it online.
Book your hotel.
Do it online.
Learn how to say hello like a local.
Do it online.
Renew your passport.
Do it online.
Wait, can you actually do that?
Yeah, it's easy. You can upload a photo from your phone and instantly know if it's correct. Fill out the forms and then you just post back your old passport.
Stay comfy on the sofa.
Do your passport online.
Get it done quickly.
Do your passport online.
Save £9.50.
Do your passport online. Take the easy option and renew your passport online. Visit gov.uk.
Get your home ready for Christmas with Oak Furnitureland. Because right now you get great low prices and guaranteed Christmas delivery. For the big meal, there's our big range of dining tables. And you can choose any chair with any table. And because it's all 100% solid hardwood, it'll easily cope with all your Christmas visitors. So get your home ready for Christmas the easy way at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you.
It's only just launched, but the new Vauxhall Combo van has already delivered. For the heavy lifters, with its payload of up to a ton. For the fuel savers, with its highly efficient engines. And now, we're delighted to announce it's also delivered the coveted title of International Van of the Year 2019. New Combo. Carries British business. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903. Search Vauxhall Combo.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
In 10 minutes or so, we'll be joined by the Liberal Democrat leader, Vince Cable, and we're debating who would do the best job at delivering Brexit in these negotiations. Could Corbyn have done a better job? But I'm very, very keen to talk next to David Wooding, political editor of The Sun on Sunday. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Nigel.
Now, you have been, as a newspaper, very pro-Brexit, and you've been very supportive of the Prime Minister. In your opinion, is there going to be 48 letters this week and a vote?
Well, it's a very tricky question, that. I was speaking to Graham Brady both yesterday and just in the last hour.
Yeah.
And he keeps his cards, and his letters for that matter, very close to his chest.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to know. I felt steam had gone out of it a little bit when Jacob Rees-Mogg, the European Research Group chairman, stood outside the Commons with a throng of journalists around him, announced he was putting in a letter and urging other people to do so. And then Theresa May managed to limp through to the weekend without the full 48 going in. The suspicion is that she's within fewer than a dozen letters of triggering an election. But I think the big thing that people will be thinking about this weekend, the MPs, apart from talking to their constituency chairmen and women and their local membership to see how they feel, they'll be wondering who is going to be the leader if they topple Theresa May. That's the first question, because they need to be able to unite behind somebody, and there's a field of about 7 or 8 people who will run. And secondly, what if she wins this? Could it strengthen her position? So it's not quite as simple as bring down the Prime Minister. There's a lot more to be thought about, I think.
So, but she could survive as Prime Minister. The 48 letters not get reached. She could do that, but she could still lose this vote on this deal, David, couldn't she?
Yes, absolutely. And this is what... this is a disagreement in the cabinet between the people such as Dominic Raab and Esther McVeigh, who both resigned among the 7 other ministers and aides who did so. They felt that we have to get rid of Theresa May because she is hopeless at A, negotiating, and B, has secured a rotten deal. But others feel that something can still be done. There's this so-called pizza group of 5, Andrea Leadsom, Michael Gove among them, Penny Mordaunt, who believe that they can renegotiate the deal, even at this late stage with the summit just a week away.
And your newspaper,
about that.
David, your newspaper sort of says here, I mean, I'm looking at your editorial main piece today, and it says the Prime Minister must give the Brexiteers and the Cabinet the chance to shape the political declaration outlining our future relations with the European Union. So, OK, we've got two things here. We've got a withdrawal agreement and a non-binding 7-page political declaration pointing the way ahead. Are you saying, through your editorial on The Sun on Sunday, and I noticed that she's writing Theresa May for you exclusively today, are you saying as a newspaper that your support is still with the Prime Minister and with this withdrawal agreement?
It's not with the withdrawal agreement at all. We do not think the withdrawal agreement is a good agreement. The difficulty is that there are 585 pages of the withdrawal agreement, and as you rightly say, Nigel, only 7 pages of the future relationship. That's 1% of the withdrawal deal.
Yes.
So I think what maybe we'll be seeing from the Prime Minister is a bit more on what's in that future relationship agreement. She needs the European Union to give her something, but of course she'll have with her in the cabinet people pushing her to try and change this deal. Lots of people, yourself included, I suspect, feel that it would be much easier to rip this thing up and start again. But time is running out, so it's very, very difficult to know where she turns from here.
And if she loses that vote in the House of Commons, you've been studying this for a few decades, would that not be the biggest political crisis of modern times?
It certainly would. With a couple of months to go till Brexit, both sides are playing a real game of poker here, because the hardline Brexiteers believe there's nothing that could stop a departure on World Trade Organization terms. That's what the critics call a hard Brexit, or crashing out, or cliff edge. And but then there's the other side, the Remainers among them, who believe that would be a disaster and that they could possibly force a second referendum. So you sense that both sides are playing a game of dare or stir, or somebody's got to blink here on this.
Well, I tell you what,
something's got to happen.
I tell you what, David, none of us will be taking any holidays this side of Christmas. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. It was David Wooding, political editor of The Sun on Sunday, saying that he'd spoken to Graham Brady this morning, who seemed to indicate there weren't 48 letters in. But I guess depends a little bit whether letters have been delivered, I suppose, and whether they were copied by email. John is calling from Newcastle. John, could Corbyn and Labour make a better fist of it than the Tories have done?
Absolutely not. No chance.
Right.
Over the last 2 years, on a week-to-week basis, if you could tell me what the Labour Party policy was consistently on Brexit, I'd be very interested to hear it.
Yeah, they're all over the shop, aren't they? And they keep contradicting each other, John, don't they?
Well, you get Corbyn will give an interview saying that he would take this out, and then 20 minutes later, Mr. Starmer pops up on TV to say the total opposite, along with Emily Thornberry and Chami Chakrabarti, who was on the Andrew Marr show this morning.
Yeah.
And he was pointing out that Mrs. May's deal pretty much gives Labour what they want in terms of remaining in the customs union and the single market. And yet she got flustered and denied it and couldn't answer the question. So what this has proved is that our members of Parliament are experts in manipulation. They are self-serving. They've done nothing for the UK public. What they had the right to do as a government and as members of Parliament was to point out that, well, look, if we do this, if we do X, then Y could possibly happen. Yes, there could be some pain, but ultimately they have to serve the British public and they have to give us Brexit.
Are you one of those people, John, who's beginning to say, I might not bother to vote for anybody next time round?
Oh, no, I'm going to vote.
You are going to vote? Okay.
I always vote. I think this has exposed politicians in the Houses of Parliament once again. I mean, a few years ago we had the expenses scandal, and we thought that there'd been a clean-up after that, and that absolutely hasn't. Absolutely hasn't. This isn't everything that's happening at the moment is not about what's best for this country. It's about protecting themselves. They are playing party politics with us to the detriment of the country.
I tell you what, John, given those views, it must be tough to know who to vote for. John, I thank you. I'm going to run on and go to Neil in Boreham Wood. Neil, could Corbyn do a better job?
Well, Nigel, what you said a few minutes earlier on before the news about the fact that if Corbyn got in, there'd be a bit of a disaster with the economy, but we'd get a Brexit. What worries me is...
I was hypothetically saying...
I get it.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Nigel, what I'm concerned is a vote for Corbyn might be a vote for Brexit, but you're also voting for a re-entry into Europe and accepting the euro, because it'd be the only way of bailing the UK out of the biggest bankruptcy ever.
OK, so you think a Corbyn government will lead us to literally going bust?
Absolutely, and without any choice, we'd have to rejoin Europe if they did. They're probably the only people that would accept it. How would we be bailed out?
Well, I look, we did have the IMF, of course, bail us out back in 1976, and that was a Labour government, to be fair. Right, so do you think the economic threat of Corbyn is a bigger risk to this country than how we deal with Brexit?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they're combined. They're intrinsically related.
It's interesting.
But my overarching point is that if Corbyn gets in, he may very well be able to negotiate a Brexit. I don't believe it will be any better, but then the economic risk will be... Thank you, Nigel.
No, you made your point. Thank you. And actually, I'm going to back Neil up, that looking at these opinion polls, if the international markets begin to think that a Corbyn government is likely, then I think you'll see the pound go to parity against both the dollar and the euro. Such would be the economic fear of what they might do. Real or not, but that's how markets tend to behave. Nigel, nobody knows what Corbyn would do on Brexit. He's kept very quiet for the last 2 years, and his party is as split as the rest of us, says PK in Hearts. Yeah, the real Labour split is not in the House of Commons. The real Labour split is between them and their voters, about 40% of whom did vote for Brexit. 5 million people who voted Corbyn had voted for Brexit the year before. Michael is calling from Lanzarote. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Nigel.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
Good.
No problem. Sat looking at the sea.
Lovely. So who is the best person to do Brexit?
None of the people in charge. We need somebody who believes in the country.
Yep.
No, we've got the upper hand here. If I'm an international haulier, I go abroad a lot. I've seen the state that Europe's in through the EU, immigration, etc. But if you see all the foreign trucks sat on the ports in France and in Spain coming to our country with their goods, we import more than we export. We've got the upper hand. Do you not think these suppliers are going to be up in arms if they lose their biggest market?
Yeah, Michael,
beyond belief.
Do you know, Michael, about 20 years ago, an old fisherman said to me, he said, you know those 10,000 trucks that come through the Channel Tunnel every day? Do you think they'll stop coming if we leave the common market? And it rather sums up the point you're making. Michael from Lanzarote, thank you for your call. He makes the point. We've actually got a very good negotiating hand, if only we understood it. If only we had people in politics running the country who'd actually had a proper job and worked in business, it would make a very real difference, in my view. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Dominic Raab warns that Theresa May has allowed Britain to be blackmailed and bullied by Brussels and that she should negotiate a tougher stance on Brexit. What exactly would a no-deal Brexit look like?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Little Red Riding Hood has been trying to sell her grandma's home for some time now, but the estate agent's shiny, sharp teeth have left her with sweat on her brow.
Trust me, darling, I just want what's best for you, hence the added fees.
However, she spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who cut out the middleman and guaranteed a sale in as little as 48 hours with no fees whatsoever. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
5 stars. What else can I say about this amazing laptop? Well, it's amazing. Stylish design and the battery goes for ages. It never runs out. But what's really amazing? Never even used it. That's right. I get paid to write fake reviews. Amazing.
Beat fake reviews with a Which membership. Our product reviews are independent and impartial. No brand can influence our recommendation. Search Which to find the facts and beat the fakes. Which? Keep questioning.
Here's a clever thing. A Blaze laser light. It beams a bicycle-shaped light onto the road in front of you to help make you more visible to others. and they're now fitted to every single one of the 11,500 Santander cycles in London. See, it's not just a light, it's a brighter bit of thinking. Search TfL improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Boots, we want to help you be protected against flu. If you're over 65, pregnant, have certain medical conditions or are a carer, you can get a free NHS flu jab. Book your free NHS flu vaccination in-store on our app or at boots.com/flu. Boots, let's feel good. England and Wales only, funded by the NHS, subject to eligibility criteria, all bookings subject to stock and pharmacist availability. Ask your pharmacy team for details.
Wait, where's my debit card? I just used it. Did I leave it in my jacket? Maybe I left it in my jeans. Oh no, I definitely put my jeans in the wash. And if it's in the washing machine, it'll be spinning round and round and round.
Wouldn't it be great if you could press pause on the card panic? Well, now you can. With the Lloyds Bank mobile banking app, you can freeze certain transactions on your Visa debit card until you find it.
Oh, there it is.
Lloyds Bank, by your side. Mobile banking app available to UK personal internet banking customers with an iPhone or Android device. T's and C's apply.
Why wait for Black Friday? Because no one likes waiting. And at Oak Furnitureland, you don't have to. Right now, you'll find great-looking furniture, all in solid hardwood at amazing prices with guaranteed Christmas delivery. So why wait? Save now at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you. Ends Sunday.
For 1 weekend only, you can buy any approved used car from Volvo Select with 0% APR finance and 2 services for just $199. But they also come with over 100 checks, so no need to kick the tires. 12 months unlimited mileage warranty, which you'll probably never use, and the latest software upgrades, which you definitely will. Visit your local retailer this weekend and drive home an approved used Volvo with 0% APR finance and 2 services for just $199. Available on used vehicles up to 4 years old. Participating retailers. 50% minimum deposit on minimum finance amount of £7,000. Conditional sale. Terms, eligibility criteria and return conditions apply. Volvo Car Financial Services.
My perfect sandwich? Well, it goes bread, lettuce, cheese, and then the Branston. Deliciously tangy. Its sweet scent alone sends my taste buds into a frenzy. A mountain of glorious pickle smothers the bread from crust to crust. Ready to embrace its culinary soulmate, the creamy cheddar. Then cut it in half and you're done.
Try new Branston Smooth in a jar. All the great Branston taste without the chunks. Bring out the Branston.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Who would do the best job negotiating Brexit? Where are we going with all of this? Well, joining me is Sir Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats. Good morning, Sir Vince.
Good morning, Nigel.
Now, looking at this withdrawal agreement, we're going to be inside the customs union, inside the single market rules. We're going to maintain free movement of people, perhaps in perpetuity. All we're doing is slightly changing the name. You must be very happy with this deal.
No, not at all. I mean, I do agree with you on your analysis that in many respects we're keeping all the rules of the European Union, but we in future will have no say over them. I mean, when I was Secretary of State, we had repeated occasions when the European Commission would come up with ideas on state aids or competition or regulation, and we objected and were able to change it in the Council of Ministers. We will no longer have that degree of control. I mean, I think we disagree on the basic outcome, but I think we do agree in our analysis of this dud agreement that Theresa May's brought back.
So you're going to vote against it, the Lib Dems are going to vote against it, and it kind of looks, if you look at the arithmetic, it seems inevitable, doesn't it, that it's going to fail in Parliament?
It does look inevitable. The numbers don't add up. And I think the big question about where we go from there, a lot of this hinges on Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, he gave a terrible interview this morning, confirmed a complete lack of leadership. I mean, whereas you've been long campaigning for Brexit openly, I think he's trying to achieve it by stealth. I think if he put his weight behind the call for a referendum, a people's vote, I think that would now happen, but he's backing off, and as a result we have no clarity at all about what happens when the government's position is voted down.
Now, whether or not we have Mrs May as our Prime Minister, I've got to ask you, Sir Vince, if we had a second referendum, there is no polling evidence that we get a different result at all. We occasionally see a poll that puts Remain a little bit ahead, and then we see one today that shows that slip back. So if we get if you get your second referendum, and we vote, this time 54% to 46, I mean, will you accept a second result?
Yes, I think we'd have to.
Right, but why?
I certainly would if I were part of leading the campaign for Remain. I certainly would accept the result, whichever way it went.
Didn't you all say you'd accept the result of the first referendum?
No, I don't think so, because it was based on, as you know, on promises, on the expectation of what Brexit might produce. I think fairly shortly after the referendum, a lot of people started to argue that we needed to have a new go at this because the outcome was likely to be very different from what people had voted for, and indeed that's exactly what's happened.
Well, lots of people in life make promises, including many of the pro-EU establishment in this country, sort of calling me a wild fantasist for suggesting that the European army was going to move and change in terms of foreign policy and indeed in terms of militarisation. And Angela Merkel this was Angela Merkel, Sir Vince, on Tuesday of this week.
What we should do, and this is really important if we look at the developments of the past years, we have to work on a vision of one day creating a real, true European army.
So, your predecessor, Nick Clegg, in open debate with me in 2014, said it was a dangerous fantasy to say the European Union wanted an army.
Well, there are some people within it who do want a European army. That's perfectly true. And
the German Chancellor, there's the French President, there's the Europe. I mean, it's happening, isn't it?
What they're arguing is that in this very dangerous, changing world of which Mr. Trump is part, we should be having more cooperation on military matters with the rest of the European Union, and that seems to me perfectly sensible and pragmatic. And we can play as much or as little a part in that as well.
Right, so you support the idea of a European army?
No, I don't. I support the idea of military cooperation between independent armies, which is a different thing.
Well, that's not what Mrs. Merkel's talking about. This is the problem, isn't it, in a way? That every time my side of the argument says they're building a superpower, they want to be an empire, by the way. The French finance minister this week said we're building an empire. Every time we put this to you, you deny it to us.
Well, I'm denying that that's what the state of affairs is. When we don't have a European army, we have quite a lot of military cooperation. We worked with the French on Libya, for example, not with great success, I have to say, but there was cooperation. There's going to have to be more. I mean, the idea about whether you have a multinational army or not depends on, as you know, on complex issues around the command structure. Are we more or less like NATO, or is there some new structure? I mean, this debate might happen in 10 years' time, but we don't have a European army.
It's happening
there
now.
Isn't one in immediate prospect.
No.
There are some people who have a vision of one, but it isn't there.
It's going to be completed by 2025, according to all the leaders of Europe. Anyway, Sir Vince, we can argue that forever. I just want to ask you finally to make a prediction. Do you think...
I think we're going to finish up with no Brexit.
You think no Brexit? Right, OK. And does that mean a second referendum, then?
Yes, that's the mechanism, but I think if it may well be that there's no agreement in Parliament to do anything, and I think if that happens, that rather than having a chaotic outcome, Parliament will vote to rescind Article 50. You asked for a prediction?
Yeah, no, I've got one, absolutely. You couldn't be clearer. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. But Sir Vince Cable, very clear what he thinks, no messing in that regard. Corbyn wouldn't get a better deal. He's a leaver, and the Blairites wouldn't let him do anything that looked like leaving, says Philip in Whiteleaf. Sarah is a new caller from Weybridge in Surrey. Good morning, Sarah.
Oh, hello. Hi, Nigel. Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome.
So yes, well, I was explaining that I think that I got put through because I said that, I'm a true blue voter.
Right.
Voted Conservative all of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I've been wondering about Corbyn. But actually, Nigel, there's something else, which is that it's Carol Cadwallader from The Observer here.
Oh, go away. Honestly, you are a ranting lunatic. I mean, in a sense, yeah. Let's go to John in Clapham.
Hello, Nigel. Nice to speak to you. I think that basically it shouldn't just be one party that is running the Brexit negotiations. It should have been a cross-party thing. As soon as the referendum was called and Cameron resigned, therefore they would all been in it, and it would have been united we stand, divided we fall. At the moment, it seems we are falling divided over whether we leave or stay, because it seems that we seem to be gearing up towards staying in a roundabout way with even less powers. And if we'd actually said, no, we have a cross-party group and we will then work out everything,
John,
because being practical...
I agree with you, John, but I'm afraid, and it's much of it is to do with our first-past-the-post electoral system, but we have tribal politics in this country, and it seems the party matters much more than the country, and much more than the referendum result. So until we get a kind of electoral reform and a bit of a breakup of these two coalitions, it's very difficult, John, to see how any common sense is ever going to come into any argument.
Well, that's true, Nigel. But the thing is, what should have happened is if they'd acted for the nation, the past-the-post system would actually be reformed by now, because the first year we should have been spent on getting our trade negotiations done with the EU, and the second year planning our trade negotiations with the rest of the world to go live on the 30th of March 2019.
John, I agree with you. The transition period was Article 50. That was designed to be the transition period. And now this Prime Minister of ours is prepared to sign us up virtually in perpetuity into something that it gives us even less sovereignty than we have at the moment, because at least now we can trigger Article 50. John, I thank you for your call. John says on Facebook, Corbyn wouldn't have a clue how to negotiate a Brexit. He flip-flops according to what he thinks would keep him in power. Well, there's almost no agreement here, isn't it? Nigel, do you believe, as I do, that David Davis, if he'd been allowed to do the deal, we'd be in a stronger, better position? Ray, I do. I think the way he was undermined by Ollie Robbins is quite extraordinary. It shows you the Prime Minister's mindset. But it's OK, folks, we're saved. Stephen Barclay, that political giant, has taken over now as the Brexit Minister. I'm sure we're going to be inspired in the days and weeks to come. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'll be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. At 3 this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, a lawyer representing 5 advertising executives who were forced out of their jobs after a diversity drive has said that straight white men feel as if they've had a target on their backs. Are straight white men being discriminated against? Before that, government ministers are refusing to back a bill that aims to tackle forced marriage by increasing the UK's legal marriage to 18, despite campaign groups and forced marriage survivors telling them otherwise. Is forced marriage a concern, and should the legal age for marriage be raised to 18? But first, Dominic Raab warns that Theresa May has allowed Britain to be blackmailed and bullied by Brussels, and that she should toughen her stance on Brexit.